I think it's the best thing for the world that Donald Trump got in. And I know people hate me for that, but that is honestly how I feel.
I can't think of anyone who would be better qualified to go into politics, and not just because I tend to agree with most of yours. You can't do that yet. Would you? Would you? And I get asked this a lot, and I say I do the same thing. But would you, at any stage, consider a tilt? I mean, president. I mean, you've been Superman. There's almost nothing greater you can do except maybe president of the United States. You brought up pretty girls. You were the hottest thing since sliced bread.
I'll take
and
it.
I'm not used to talking this way. I cover politics and national security and foreign affairs, so this is quite strange for me. But I need to, because I know lots of people like me will be fascinated by your love life. And so, are you single? Dean Cain, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to see you.
I'm very happy to be here. Don't be alarmed by the clock here. Just ignore
Oh,
it completely.
what's on the clock? Is it like a countdown?
It just says 8:32, which is
Oh,
what time it is here, and it is not the same time there in
time zones
Australia.
are not my friend, as you're probably starting to learn. I reckon I am really super highly intelligent in some ways, and then thick as pig shit in others. It doesn't make sense. You're generally kind of an all-rounder. I'm hopeless at some really basic things.
God can't give you everything.
It's a really good point. And to be honest, if I'm going to be weak in one space, time zones, I can handle that.
Done, done.
Dean, you're a bit of a rarity in Hollywood slash acting circles because you A, seem to have a functioning brain, and B, some common sense. When did you break away from the norm when it comes to Hollywood, or were you always a little bit more conservative or a little bit writer leaning, if I can put it that way?
I think because I'm an athlete first and foremost, and athleticism is, athletics are a meritocracy. So you don't care if someone is ugly or missing a tooth or speaks funny. If they're good in the game and they earn it, they get their respect for it. And so I never judged anybody. I was a little Japanese boy growing up. I didn't realize that I looked any different than any of the other kids or anything like that. So my friend told me, he's like, hey, Frank's sister was asking if those Chinese kids moved out. I was like, what's Chinese kids? He's like, you. I said, wait a minute, I'm part Japanese. I didn't get it. I didn't see myself as any different, but I really judged everybody on merit, on what they did on the field or on the court or whatever it was, and whether they were nice about it or jerks about it. So I come at it from an athletics perspective, and I think, the people who are drawn to Hollywood, to acting, a lot of them are doing it in some ways for like a psychological evaluation, or they can play characters, versions of themselves or something else that they're not happy. A lot of them aren't happy being themselves. I'm very, very happy being myself. That's why I'm happy to sit down and talk politics, talk law enforcement, talk movies, talk whatever with people, because I'm a pretty open book. But it's because I think I have a sense of, I know who I am.
Was that always the case? Because I feel like I'm there now, absolutely. But 5, 10 years ago, not a chance in hell was I there, or even a little bit comfortable being who I authentically was. And I know that sounds a bit wanky, but did it take you time to find the confidence to be that person, or was that immediate for you?
I think it takes everybody time, and we all think we've achieved, and then all of a sudden we fall and something happens, or you get injured, or you make a film and it sucks, or you do something you thought was funny and everybody
Get
says it's
fired from
terrible.
network, your TV show gets axed. Yeah, I get it. I get
It
it.
happens, and I've watched it happen. And my dad, because my dad's a director, but he started as an actor, wasn't a very good one. I like to remind him of that. I still have my father, who's 81 and lives 5 minutes away, and it's wonderful. But he told me when I said I might be an actor, he said, don't do it. Like, if you can do anything else, do that. And he wanted me just to be a writer, because as a writer, nobody knows who you are. I mean, I don't know if you can pick Taylor Sheridan out of a lineup, but I don't know. But he is huge. He was an actor, and he's done some great work. And it's your words and your ideas. So he wanted to push me in that direction. And I still write. I probably write right now more than anything. But I write all the time, and I love it. It's a great way to express yourself. But when you step out in front of that screen, everybody will criticize you. You're too tall, you're too short, your hair's too long, your boobs are too big, your boobs too small, your butt's too big, you talk funny, your accent sucks. That's what it is. There's a joke in Hollywood, how many actors does it take to play a role? The answer, of course, is 100. One to do it, and then 99 to say, I could have done a better job. True. True.
I love that. I love that. Talking politics, do you get blowback from people in your industry because of your political views, or are people just used to them by now?
Well, I think it's a combination of people being used to it, and also most people in Hollywood are cowards. How do you say, F you in Hollywood? Trust me. And that's true, because they're cowards. They won't say it to your face. Oh, we don't want him because we think he's conservative, or he's pro law enforcement, or he's pro Israel, or whatever it happens to be. They won't say that very often. I would respect them if they did, because then I could tell them, kind of how I feel about them. But I mean, and I can respect that. I used to really want to be liked by everybody, and that was a thing. And maybe it was the advent of the internet, or maybe it was going on a network show for 4 years and being scrutinized for everything. When I first got Superman, it was, we wanted Superman, not Sushi Man. I got that. Now, I didn't make a thing of it because I thought it was ridiculous. In fact, my brother and I laughed we'll laugh at it now because it's hysterical, because it's so ridiculous. Yeah. But the internet's full of people who are bomb throwers, who love to come at you and cut you down for anything. And look, I just know that I'm super blessed to be on this earth, to have the wonderful family. My son, who's, in the other room. It's different when they're 24, by the way. They're quiet. They do things for you. My son is 24. I'll be like, Christopher, can you carry that for me? And he's just like, "Rrr," and I'm like, yes. All those years of having to chase you around, and so it comes full circle. It does.
But for context, for those who clearly weren't privy to what happened prior, my 6-year-old daughter, is it 5 or 6 interruptions for food?
Oh, at least. Well, I think it's more than her age.
She was choking on a Pringle. So Dean has now seen firsthand how great a mother I am. You'll be fine. Yes.
No, you were wonderful. The funny thing is that you said, "Oh, he's an actor, and he's a big actor. People know him. Are you impressed?" And she goes, "No." Thank you very much.
She thinks
a little humbleness to start the.
Yeah, she's not impressed by me at all, by anyone. I reckon even Taylor Swift should be like, meh, next, which I kind of like. I kind of like that.
But that's right.
Exactly.
That's how it should be. Earn your respect from somebody and be nice to them. Be like, this person's really nice. I like this person. They're quick, they're sharp, they're funny, whatever. But you can't, just because, they're famous, nah.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. And that's when you talk about judging people based on merit, on character, on what they do as opposed to what they look like, et cetera, et cetera.
It's right back to that.
I wanted to ask you, California, you used to be a citizen there. They've had some awful issues.
Yep.
Awful. And
terrible.
I think you were one of the first people to come out very publicly, the first celebrities, and absolutely annihilate them for immense failings. Why did you decide to speak so publicly about what was going on there, and particularly off the back of fires, etc.?
Well, first of all, at a certain point in time in your life, as a parent, as a human being on this earth, you get to a place where you're like, and I say this often, it's like, people may not have any interest in politics, but I promise you, politics is interested in you. It's going to affect everything you do, from your property taxes to your sales tax, to the car you drive, to how you water your lawn or don't water your lawn. So all of that stuff affects you. And I started to see what I thought was craziness, because you're not eating it every day. You're not aware of it. You're doing things, and you're like, wait a minute, this seems weird. Why am I having to go through all these regulations to water my yard in my backyard? I had a big backyard in Malibu. Why is this such a why did my water bill cost more than most people's mortgages? And you start looking into their things, and as a parent, it's different. So you go, oh, my kid's going to be the next generation. They're going to have to live with this. Why are we doing this? And so I just found, I'm a Princeton grad. I grew up in Malibu, California, very liberal bastion, but I was an athlete and I worked hard. And when everybody else was going surfing and getting stoned in the summertime, I was taking the bus 45 minutes into Santa Monica to do the lifting and so on and so forth, and training for football during the summer. And I'd be running up the hills and running around, and I'd see them all. And I thought, you know what? Go ahead, because this is going to get me into college. This is going to get me, I ended up playing in the NFL. It's going to get me someplace that I want to go. And if you have that desire, bless you. If you don't, then you have other things you're going to worry about. And I'm not going to judge somebody for that. But that's where I was. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be here and do this. And and then as I became a parent, I just had to speak my mind because things seemed crazy. There's another saying, it's like the only thing that is necessary for evil to succeed is for good men or women to stand around and do nothing. And so I felt obligated to start speaking up. And it wasn't popular, and it still isn't popular for a lot. I'll say something about, if you had kidnapped my son and taken him across the border to Gaza, I'm coming in like Rambo. And they're like, you're the worst Superman ever. Like, where's the, that's kind of a non sequitur, but yeah, okay.
How is it controversial? And I'll segue into that because you've done it beautifully, in that how is it considered controversial to have common sense, to believe in the necessity of law enforcement, to determine that if your child is dragged away by terrorists, that you would go and do anything in your power to rescue them and bring them back, to stand with the victims of terrorism? How has all of this become some kind of controversial behavior?
It's funny. I think we're getting into that now. If I'm just going to use the United States as the focal point for it, since I'm a U.S. citizen and we have Donald Trump in office now, and I absolutely adore the fact that he's in there. I love the team he's put together. I know many, many of them. We're exposing that now. It was the money going to USAID, which I've known for decades that it was a CIA front and what they were doing. I'm aware of it because I was, in 2005, I was with their soldiers in Iraq. I've been around politics and around politicians ever since. I was in the Oval Office with Bill Clinton, who I did vote for back in the day. He's a charming son of a bitch. I'm not going to lie about that. He really is. And I liked him, especially in this second term. And, so I just, people started asking me questions. Our publicists are like, don't answer that. Don't get involved in that. And I got rid of publicists. I just got sick of being told and sort of handled.
They're a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So I don't like being told and being handled. And I think it's a different time now. So I did it, maybe 5 or 10 years beforehand. Why am I spending $2,000 a month paying a publicist to get me on magazine covers and do things like that when I don't even like what they print? So I'll be on the cover of Hook and Barrel magazine next month with my 50 caliber Desert Eagle that was custom made for me, wearing my sheriff's badge on my hip, shooting guns in the desert.
$2,000.
Was that? And didn't cost me a penny. But those are things that I support. And if people don't like guns, great. But we have the Second Amendment here in the United States. I support it. I sit on the board of directors for the NRA. I do a lot of things that people are like, ooh, that's just, you're horrible, you're a Nazi. And I'm like, well, I'm literally the exact opposite.
Yeah. And you are. So much of your work in recent times, and I know this because when I go to Israel, people talk about you, and I actually thought you might be Jewish or have some kind of Jewish background when I first started to see some of the stuff that you were doing, which was incredible because it can be a lonely space, being normal and standing up for good versus evil in a world that appears to have gone completely bonkers. Why is this a space that you've decided to dip into? Is it just because you're a decent human being? Is there a personal element to this we don't know?
Well, when you're raising a child and your child finds out someday they're going to die, and they say to you, well, when my son figured it out, he couldn't sleep. His body was shaking, and I'd have to take him outside and sit outside with him and talk to him. So my sort of journey for faith started before then. I was always sort of searching for it, trying to figure it out, taking classes, reading the Bible, reading books, reading things, listening to things, and then having my own experiences. But then when you're caring for someone else and you have to explain to them everything, why are we here? What are we doing? You start to find different answers. You start to realize I would do anything. And a friend of mine just had a baby, and he like 72 hours ago. And he said, it's the craziest thing, because you realize in that moment that you would die gladly to save this person's life, this child's life, that somebody is that much more important to you. So once that kind of came into my life, I wasn't so much about me and so me focused. It's very freeing. It's like, I'm going to do what's right, and I'm going to do it for my child, so that maybe the world will be a little bit better place for them, or they're going to be a little more prepared, or maybe you can affect someone else's life in that sense. But for Israel in particular, because I'm Christian, having read about it and being a history major, like I love history, and everything in the Bible is historical. And so be able to be there and see things like that. I visited Israel. One of my best friends my best friend growing up was Jewish, so I helped him study for his bar mitzvah. We were doing all kinds of things. He would go away to what he called Jew camp, and they'd have overnight camping and things. Guys, girls, they'd go on walks. He was trying to hook up with this little girl and things, and I was like, Mom, I want to be Jewish. I want to go to Jew camp with Evan.
I don't think you would have needed the help. I mean, now or back then. I reckon you would have been okay.
But I was like, this is great. No parents, you get to run around. So I grew up, surrounded by a lot of different cultures, religions, things of that nature. But we were friends on the football field or baseball field or whatever, surfing in the water, and you looked out for your friends. And so that wasn't a big deal for me. But as things goes on, I mean, the idea of Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East, and I know, listen, I'm good friends with a lot of people who live in that area. Israeli, Jordanian, Egyptian, you name it, Syrian, Lebanese. So that whole area, I have great friends of all faiths, and we discuss this stuff all the time. I mean, and some of them are high up, and some of them are princes and things of that nature, and some are just your everyday regular folks. But I hear the arguments and I hear the discussions. At the end of the day, most of us just want the same things. We want to take care of our families, be able to have a job that gives us some self-worth in that sense, but to care for your families, provide safety and security for them, and hopefully a better life moving forward. And when I was in Israel, my gosh, I loved Israel. Tel Aviv itself reminded me of growing up in Malibu, California, or the northern beaches of Australia in Sydney.
Yeah,
Really, they're very similar.
Yeah. See, I feel like, I mean, you're obviously very intelligent and you care deeply and you've got a really good head on your shoulders. I think what a lot of politicians struggle with is that ability to communicate effectively, to speak to the common man as well as to kings and princes. And I can't think of anyone who would be better qualified to go into politics. And not just because I tend to agree with most of yours. You can't do that yet. Would you, and I get asked this a lot, and I say I do the same thing. But would you, at any stage, consider a tilt? I mean, president. I mean, you've been Superman. There's almost nothing greater you can do except maybe president of the United States.
Well, politics is a dirty business. You think, journalism is a dirty business, or acting in Hollywood is a dirty business. Politics is. I mean, look what they're doing to Elon Musk right now. Oh. He predicted it. He said, they're going to come after me with everything, and they're going to come after me with everything if I run. They're gonna, it's gonna be a lot of. He likes pretty girls, and he's been saying he's 50. I'll be 59 this July, and they'll be like, what has he done? We'll find it somewhere. We're gonna go through his entire history. Someone in college said he was drunk at a thing, which I probably was, but not during football season, and did something stupid and blah blah blah. We all do.
But I feel like because of who you are, anything that the interest in finding stuff out about you has been intense your entire life. Anything that was going to ruin you would be out, I'd assume.
I would hope so, because I don't know of anything. Because I've sat down, they've asked me to sit down and talk to them, whether it was the GOP actually asked me to sit down in California and discuss maybe running for governor when Gavin Newsom was recalled. And they said, what skeletons do you have in your closet? What do you got? And I was like, I don't think there's much. We didn't have cell phones back when I was in college, or there might be a little bit more, because of course we did some stupid things. All of us did. You're supposed to. I don't want a president who hasn't made a mistake.
Me neither.
I don't want a politician who hasn't screwed up. You look at if you read the Bible, God uses imperfect people all the time, and there's none more imperfect than Donald Trump. He's had a very imperfect life in that sense, in a godly. He's divorced, et cetera, et cetera. But God has a way of using people like that to change the world. And I think right now, first of all, the speed at which they're working in this administration is phenomenal. And I love the things that are going on. And I get that. I hear it from everybody. If someone wants to disagree with me, I'd love to hear their opinion. And if their opinion can convince me otherwise, maybe I'll change my opinion. But I haven't heard that argument yet.
See, I love that, because I think something people struggle with, and I don't know if it's because so much of what we think, particularly if you're a public figure, is public, and I guess it's there forever if it's on the internet or television or whatever it is. But people seem so reluctant to hear something new and say, oh, actually, with new information, I've decided that actually, like I look at Ukraine and Russia, and I'm banned from Russia. because
Are
I've called
you?
Vladimir Putin
Wow.
a warlord. Yes, and I believe that, by the way. That has not changed. I don't look at him in any, nicer light. But I can look at new information that's come to hand and think maybe though the president of Ukraine hasn't done everything that and I can shift my perspective based on new information, which everyone should, and we should welcome people. But people are terrified to change their stance even when new information comes to light. I don't get it.
It's that whole weird wokeness thing,
Yeah.
the virtue signaling. I want to put a Ukrainian flag in my bio to show how I support Ukraine. They can't find it on a map.
No.
I know where it is. I know exactly where it is. I know which provinces were attacked, why they're doing it. I understand it. The idea that Ukraine is going to join NATO. We signed a treaty saying that would never happen. We're changing that. There's a lot of things that go on. Both sides. I've been to Russia. I've been to Poland. I haven't been to Ukraine. I had planned to go a couple of times. I'm glad now I wasn't there during the start of this. But kid, I grew up with Sean Penn. Our parents were best friends. And Sean's about 6 or 7 years older than me, so I didn't really hang out with Sean. I hung out with his younger brother, Chris. Well, Sean's lived a little harder than I have, and he's a phenomenal actor, and I think he's a much better actor than I am. But I wouldn't want to have to reside in your head, Sean. I love you, but no, I don't want to live in there. I'd much rather be here in mine. I think it's a little more calm. But there are people who go out there and have been there and know the area, and it's a rough situation. The thing I like the most about it with President Trump is he's talking about ending the war, and people are like, well, no concessions, none of it. Well, end the war. There are thousands. If I've been to war, like I said, I visited our troops in 2005 in Iraq. It was not what I anticipated. I thought I was going to do a little USO thing. Yay, stay in big bases. I was at 2 forward operating bases a day. It was 128 degrees. We were getting fired on. We were getting rockets. We were getting mortars. I was like, what am I doing? I left LA and now I'm in the middle of a war. Well, what am I doing? It was crazy. But then I saw these kids that were out there, and I was like, war is horrible. I don't ever want to have to be in war again. So many of my friends are former military, current military, and they don't like war either. They train for it. The same way I train as a law enforcement officer, or even as a father. Stay vigilant, be prepared, hope it never happens, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Well, that's kind of the key to it all, isn't it? That's why Pete Hegseth is in there bringing back lethality to the US military, because that is the only thing, I love him too, that will help avoid war. I mean, the tougher, the stronger, the more battle ready you are, the less chance anyone is going to take you on. And that's why
Peace through strength.
Absolutely. It's the only thing. Our enemies do not think the way we do. The only language they understand is brute strength. And that's being brought back now to the US military, which is
if you start to negotiate with some of these folks, they see it as weakness.
Absolutely.
And that people don't understand that about the Middle East. They understand like one thing, which is lethality and force, and that's it. And so you better be more lethal than them. That's how they rule. I mean, Hamas is not ruling Gaza by being wonderful and sweet and taking care of the kids and educating them well. They're educating them that Jews drink the blood of Muslims, and the best thing they could do is to go blow themselves up and kill Jews. Yeah. That's horrific. And you know what? Unfortunately, USAID and UNRWA and a lot of that money was coming from the United States, and that disgusts me.
It does indeed. And a lot of that money is still coming from my country. We haven't stopped it yet, and that disgusts me as well. So before we move on quickly, politics, you are open potentially to it, even though it is vile.
I would hate it, but if I thought I could go in there and do it and get out, make a big difference, a good difference, I could give up a couple years of my life. 6 years if you're a senator, 4 years if you're president, and 8 if you run twice. That would be plenty. I wouldn't want to spend, I look at these career politicians, Nancy Pelosi, who's been there since 1842, I can't, why are you still there? They've done nothing in the private sector. They don't have they love and they thrive on that pressure. I think Jill Biden, I think she was one of those power hungry. I think she loved, it just appears to me as a outside observer that she certainly loved the trappings of the White House and the power and the prestige. You just go out and you get on Air Force One or you get on Marine One, and you're so catered to and protected, and whatever you say weighs 1,000 pounds. And gosh, this is really cool. Yeah. I'm so thankful that Joe Biden and Jill Biden are out of out of the Oval Office. I'm so thankful that Kamala Harris didn't get in there. I think it's the best thing for the world that Donald Trump got in. And I know people hate me for that, but that is honestly how I feel. And I think at the end, in history will show that it turned out to be the best thing for the world. This was a turning point.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Agree entirely. Now, I want to ask, you brought up pretty girls, and my kind of generation, and look, many after, I'm sure, and many before, grew up idolizing you. You were the hottest thing since sliced bread.
I'll take it.
I'm not used to talking this way. I cover politics and national security and foreign affairs, so this is quite strange for me. But I need to, because I know lots of people like me will be fascinated by your love life and where you're at now, and acting, and a little more personal. So, are you single?
Very, very much so.
And
Yes.
is that, I'm guessing that's a choice that you've made in your life, that you're not at home nightly yearning for love. You've had plenty of it.
Yeah, I think there's nothing worse than being in a relationship where it's not good. You're more lonely in that than you are by yourself. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to put somebody else in that position either. I've had relationships that I thought were going great that apparently weren't. And you find that out. I've had a couple of my exes married the next dude. One of them, there was even a little crossover. She was already going out there. So, listen, none of us are perfect, but there are people who are perfect together. And that's what I would love to find. I'd love to find my son is my best friend. He is my favorite person to be around. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't annoy the crap out of me sometimes, but that's what happens. I mean, but I would do anything for him. And I would love to have that relationship where my partner is my best friend.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Who do you think who was the best girlfriend you ever had? Like, was it Brooke Shields?
Brooke was a wonderful girlfriend. She was lovely. That was my college sweetheart. But she had the weight of the world on her shoulders.
Yeah.
Everything she did was, scrutinized, even within Princeton, which is a very insulated environment. That's part of the reason I liked it. It was because you could make mistakes and do stupid things, and it kind of stays within. We only had 4,500 undergrads, and we all lived on campus. But her life, having been under the microscope, and she had a very difficult childhood with her father was non-existent really, and her mother was a raging alcoholic, and we had a couple of scrapes a couple times, her mother and I. But Brooke was a lovely person, super smart, just a lovely person, but who had the weight of the world on her shoulders. And I think she's pretty happy right now. And her husband is a great guy. They're perfect. They work together wonderfully. I don't have one that I feel like got away.
Yeah, right. Okay, fascinating. What about your son? Any kind of interest in acting and following in dad's footsteps, or again?
You know what? He was against it because I think it's a weird thing if your parent, and you probably going through this, is a known figure. So a lot of people you'll go someplace with your daughter and then people will pay you a lot of attention. Your daughter's like, no, she's my mommy and that's it, and leave her alone.
She just thinks it's normal that we go places and people will stop me for photos, or like I'm waiting for her to get to the age where she realizes that just doesn't happen to everyone's mummy.
She might not get there, but I'll tell you what she will do. She'll get to the place where it's annoying the hell out of her.
Yeah.
And like it annoyed my son. So he sort of just try to, shun those things. However, looks like he and I are going to co-direct a project together, a very small project that I'm just finishing writing. It's a cute faith-based sort of golf movie. I like sports movies. First movie that ever made me cry was a movie called Brian's Song. It was great. It's sort of the story of Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, professional football players, great friends. I bawled my eyes out, and I didn't understand why are my eyes leaking? I was a little kid, but it really affected me tremendously. That bond that those players had. So I love that about sports as a metaphor for life. And so the next movie I have coming out is a movie called Little Angels, which is the story of a college football coach, like a Nick Saban guy, American football, not footy. You guys have the funniest words. Footy. Like I seen Chris Hemsworth, who's like the nicest guy in the world, by the way. I mean, he's horrible.
Which guy? Say again.
Chris Hemsworth?
Oh yes. Yeah, he's
horribly ugly guy. Horribly ugly guy. Terrible shape. The nicest guy in the world. He's gorgeous. He is funny. He was talking about the Australian language, and he's like, Australian, the accent is horrible. Footy, this thing. Like you get this big just brute of a guy, and he's like, let's go play some footy. I'm like, footy? That doesn't sound tough, but American football. So the story of Little Angels is an American football coach, like a big time guy, wins the national championship again. And he's very pompous, and he played football in the past. I mean, things that I can relate to. And then they bring in a girl kicker who misses an extra point in the national championship. But the game's already over. Didn't matter. And he says some stupid stuff, and he gets. He said it was a publicity stunt. She's a soccer player. We're in America. Soccer's for girls. Well, that gets him in trouble. He gets suspended, and he has to support the state, keep his job, and save $5 million. He has to go coach a under 13-year-old girls soccer team, which he hates. Doesn't like the kids. But of course, as he spends time with them and teaches them the value of teamwork and family and hard work and merit and all of these things, all of a sudden he's invested in them and he cares about them. And of course, there's a love interest, and she's lovely. And the movie is fun, and I think it's like, I kind of liken it to Mighty Ducks, but girls soccer, and it's got that feel to it. And I hope it has that sort of success. And it comes out mid-June. So I did that one. My son worked on that one with me. It was great. But now we're going to co-direct this golf movie, I think, together, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that is so exciting. Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see. So Little Angels is out first.
Yep.
And then the golf movie is...
Well, I'm probably going to shoot 2 more things before that, but then that'll I don't know when that'll come out. When you start working on these, oh my gosh. Like Little Angels, I finished over 2.5 years ago. But getting distribution and going through the process, that part of the business I hadn't been part of before so intimately, and it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And so I figured it out a little bit better, so the next film won't take 3 years to come out, I hope.
It'll be worth the wait, no doubt. Dean Cain,
so.
You are a treasure. Your country is so lucky to have you. I hope that someone does convince you at some stage to commit to a tiny foray into politics, because I think your voice would be so powerful. But either way, you are helping change the world regardless. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful.
I'm honored, and it's lovely to see your daughter just poking her head in all the time. There she is.
Yeah,
I like your pajamas, your little hearts.